You're listening to Innovators, the podcast from Harris Search Associates, where we speak with global leaders in education, research, engineering, and the health sciences, and ask them to share lessons learned as they continue to advance the frontiers of innovation and discovery. Today's podcast will be led by Rick Skinner, Senior Consultant.
Brian Blake was named Provost of Drexel University in 2015, leaving his post of Vice Provost and Dean of Graduate Studies at the University of Miami. Before Miami, Dr. Blake was a professor of computer science and engineering and Associate Dean for Research and Graduate Studies at Notre Dame. He served as a faculty member and chair of the Department of Computer Science at Georgetown University and managed to find a way to fit in time to work for several major technology companies. His undergraduate degree was earned from Georgia Tech, his master's from Mercer University, and his doctorate from George Mason University. Dr. Blake, welcome to Innovators.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to kind of get a chance to have this conversation for this.
Oh, it's our pleasure. You know, there's no shortage of colleges and universities in Philadelphia, including Drexel. Penn State alone in your part of the world has 20 campuses throughout Pennsylvania, and through Penn State Global Campus online all around the world. With such a wealth of higher education there, what makes Drexel University stand out among the rest? What gives the university its distinction?
Well, you pointed out quite astutely about Penn State, and obviously in this area there's Temple and Villanova, there's UPenn, but even worse than that, there's the Northeast region where
yes.
So it's a competitive market here. And, you know, I'm delighted that Drexel has its own distinctive factor to this. I think when you look at Drexel in particular, our students are really innovators, but not in the traditional sense. I mean, I think if you think of Ivy League institutions where there's a strong focus on theoretical instruction, Drexel's really strong in the area where students are practical. So our students, one of our professors said they're thinkers who do. You'll see that across the region. Our cooperative education program where students have 3 rotations where they work for 6 months, they go to school for 6 months, and all of our curriculum requirements are kind of weaved into both sort of a working term and an academic term. I think that's a real distinction. And with that, the institution's had a 94% outcome rate where students are placed either in jobs or in graduate school right out of term here. So I think the piece that parents love, and I obviously I'm gratified for, is that our students have really great outcomes in industry and in higher education. So I think that's a distinctive piece. And we're an anchor institution. Many in the city of Philadelphia consider us to be the institution for the municipal area as well. So I think that we serve that well by doing a great deal of work in West Philadelphia, which is sort of an economically disadvantaged area.
I want to make sure that we get that number you said. It's about a 94% placement rate of your graduates?
Certainly. It fluctuates between 93 and 95, I think, but I think the most recent is 93.
And that's across all majors?
That's across the institution.
Wow, that's an incredible number. Well, you brought it up, so I want to come back to it. For much of its history, Drexel was maybe best known for engineering and co-op. Then in recent years, the Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences, Medicine, and a College of Public Health were added. What do these additions have in common with the original Drexel? Are they departures from what you were, or are they extensions of what you are?
I think how you've alluded this is completely right. Very early in Drexel's formation, we were Drexel Institute of Technology. So certainly the institution was founded under the principles of science, industry, and art. So we didn't have a College of Arts and Sciences to start off with. And about 25, 30 years ago, there were some challenges. I think we had our first recession, and the institution had challenges with enrollments. And although we had been known traditionally for an engineering institution, we actually had a president at the time who actually, through his will, pushed the institution to be have a bit more breadth. We started adding on a College of Arts and Sciences. We merged with a College of Medicine. We added the Academy of Natural Sciences, a museum. So I think, and with the College of Medicine, we did get the Dornsife College of School of Public Health, as well as College of Nursing and Health Professions. And then later we extended our College of Engineering to with a standalone School of Biomedical Engineering. So I think it was a very deterministic idea to become a Drexel University that had more breadth. With that, we had the ability to build on our strength of science, industry, and art, and actually push that into technology for medicine. So some of our real interesting areas of distinction are in drug discovery. We have technologies for robotics around medicine. We do a great deal, like I said, in the community with regards to urban health. So that extended our College of Arts and Sciences programs like sociology and psychology into areas that are covered in our College of Medicine, like prenatal and other concerns. So I think it really gave us the ability to flex some muscles that we didn't currently have.
And it sounds like it's an evolution. The fact that you had a president who was prepared to really push you to perhaps speed that up. Nevertheless, it does sound like an evolution of what Drexel was.
Certainly, and it was a different core of students. I mean, we went from around 8,000 or 9,000 students, and today we sit here at close to 25,000. A significant growth in 2 decades, which has had incredible impact on what we feel is our areas of distinction, as well as other areas I think we're going to be able to grow in as we move into the future.
And that sort of leads to a kind of an obvious question. Let's take 3 topics: the lives of the undergraduates who are at Drexel now, the city of Philadelphia, and then third, what Drexel researchers have contributed to our knowledge of how to improve the quality of life for people. Now, there's 3 broad areas, but I want you to tell us and our audience an indicator, just one now. I can't have many.
Okay.
Just one indicator that you watch yourself to see if the university is making a difference in each of those 3 areas.
Well, I think we have been watching, particularly for the lives of our undergraduate students. Our current president set a strategy that Drexel will be the most civically engaged institution in the country. Largely, as a provost, I'm very interested in what those outcomes look like for our students and kind of what they when actually graduate and go into the different areas. Are they doing things that are having significant societal impact? You'll see things at Drexel that you may not see at other places with regards to us we have a civic engagement 101 course.
Yes,
all through
saw that.
Yeah, so that's really, and then what you find is those freshman students, they actually then move on to do our other things that are related to our Lindy Institute of community engagement. So we actually have a full life cycle of different types of programs that students can get engaged in. And what I see is that when the students graduate and take positions, they continue to be very philanthropic through how they give of their time, how they give of what organizations they're involved with. And I think that's a true.
That's excellent.
And you see it across, as you go around Drexel, go around Philadelphia and the region, you don't find very many places where they haven't had impact with a Drexel student. And I think that's a really significant and
that is an incredible one.
Now, when you talk about the city of Philadelphia, well, I think that covers both. I think city of Philadelphia, we've had significant economic impact because co-ops are everywhere. They're taking on some of the positions. Oftentimes you'll hear companies that have co-ops from multiple places will say, it's the Drexel co-op that's getting the work done, because we have the boots on the ground for this type of for just about, and if you think we're broad, 14 schools and colleges, students are working in just about every discipline you can imagine. Your final one was about research. I think I'm really excited about the work we do in materials, advanced manufacturing. We are at the cusp of the new ideas of functional fabrics, where you have fabrics that are linked with sensors and can do things that are well beyond what has been traditionally defined as Internet of Things. And with that, we have materials that are called Maxines that are like the light material in everyone's cell phone. So I think we have a great deal of real work that I think touches society in a very broad way, even beyond Philadelphia, but internationally.
It's interesting the way you described us. When we wanted to pose this question, we saw those as 3 somewhat distinctive areas, but the way you put it together, it's all of a piece almost.
Certainly, I think it kind of goes to our character.
Mm-hmm.
That ties it all together. If you're involved with civic engagement and you have students and staff that are innovators that are looking for a 2 to 3 year impact on their work, then you begin to see things that are making a difference today. And that's what it attracted me to the institution, is just the ability to kind of see things accomplished in a time frame that during my chapter is going to make a difference.
Let's take another tack now that sort of struck me when we were looking at all of the things that you've taken on and the university has taken on. You were one of the very first institutions that I can recall that began offering distance learning that really was targeted to a working professional. And then most recently, and maybe not as recently, but within the last few years, your international engagement has become much more prominent than it was in the past. Where do those two things fit? That is, e-learning, global engagement. Where do they fit into the strategic development of Drexel?
That's a great question. And what I'd say is that, just as I said, we're an anchor institution. We actually provide access for students to, particularly historically, our online programs that will provide access for manufacturer workers to get degrees and continue to work. And that just kind of goes to the character of a really strong cooperative education program. So when you think about that, it makes a lot of sense to be able to kind of offer education even more broadly than that. When I combine those two topics, I keep thinking about, I grew up in what used to be a small town. It's a little bit more distinctive now, but Savannah, Georgia. I didn't leave Savannah for 18 years. I think my first time on a plane was when I was older than 18. And, part of that is that since that time, I've had a chance to really see the world. And that's what I like about e-learning. We have so many students that are like me that didn't have a broad engagements coming up. But don't you want those students to be able to think beyond their experiences? Don't we want people in the world to be able to think beyond their experiences, not be so pigeonholed into areas that are around what they know or what they think they know? So what I do like about online education is that we have the opportunity, and we're doing this with our global classrooms, to get students in the classroom with students in other countries and working side by side without actually physically having the need of them being physically present. So I do like this notion of training students to think beyond their own beliefs, beyond kind of their own experiences, and then doing that in such a way that it really incorporates the breadth of disciplines that we have, our unique flavor of instruction, particularly experiential learning. So I think those are the pieces that are beginning to come together. And we begin to see some other types of opportunities where we might be able to establish bridge programs through online modules that will that take them to could come to Drexel and have the right preparation before they actually come here in a physical form. So
excellent. Blake, this is your first time as a provost, and somebody once described the provost job as somewhere between the president and an unruly faculty. And that may describe it pretty well. It's changed, though, over, say, the last maybe 4 or 5 decades, because university presidents and chancellors spend much more time outside the university and away from the campus, and they spend far less time as academic administrators. So as a result, provosts have become really, in effect, chief operating officers, and they pretty much run universities, unless, of course, there's a medical school that has all of its parts and pieces. But when you came to Drexel, what was the thing that surprised you most about the job of provost that you really hadn't anticipated?
I was a dean before becoming a provost, and I was a dean of the graduate school. So I was like the dean of graduate students. It's kind of broad across the entire campus. When I came to Drexel, I became the dean of faculty across the board, and probably the leader of the deans. And, what I didn't realize was I thought I would be purely academic. And you raised a point that I didn't pick up on when I was here, is this chief operating officer. We have a COO, but there's no one on campus that really has the full breadth of the institution. So the thing that surprised me the most of becoming provost is how essentially lonely the job can be, because
Yes.
there's very few people that have the full breadth.
Mm-hmm.
The president looks at me, if someone throws a rock through a window in the law school building, you could go to the dean, who knows the impact that's going to be, what classes, where in facilities to get the window fixed,
Mm-hmm.
you cancel the class, what are the legal implications if the rock went through and hit someone? I mean, it's just, you have so much of the breadth. And even with that being the case, you've got vice provosts that have different slices.
Mm-hmm.
There's hardly any equal to the provost who actually cuts across research, faculty, undergrads, graduate students, assessment, accreditation, facilities, HR, legal, professional. I mean, it's more of I think in my first year I was overwhelmed,
Mm-hmm.
but then by my third year I felt quite comfortable in the role. And you're surprised how many people and how many different processes that you are able to digest over a period of time. So it is an exercise of appetite.
There's an old joke about the fellow who's standing in the faculty dining hall, and he turns to his colleague and says, I just think I ought to let you know I've just been named provost at big University U. And the other fellow stops and looks at him and says, you have my deepest sympathies.
That's correct. So it's nothing better for a provost than to have lunch or breakfast or some meeting with other provosts, because it's
Mm-hmm.
commiseration of the job. But it's rewarding. I think you really have a chance to move an institution. You have so many different tools,
Mm-hmm.
particularly broad schools like Drexel with 14 schools and colleges.
Yep.
We can bring to bear scholarly impact across the board. So that part of it I really do like.
One last question before we close today. Research universities such as your own really find themselves in some paradoxical circumstances these days. On the one hand, universities are readily and routinely cited as the best in the world. They're the centers of a global economy that's fueled by knowledge development and the growth of innovation. And on the other hand, those same institutions are frequently criticized for what some see as an insatiable appetite for more and more money. How do you address this conundrum in talking with your deans, but also with your external stakeholders?
It's pretty interesting. When you look at markets broadly, there's a lot of focus that's put in education. And I wish I'd have picked up this reference because it's really telling. If you look at a trend over 30 years and you try to map industries against cost of living, it's interesting. Education is really not too far out of whack when you think about it in terms of other types of things like the stock market industry. So it's, when I look at the United States, we've traditionally been a leader in higher education, meaning we try our best to innovate in ways in which students from other parts of the world come to get an education here because they appreciate that as sort of the state of the art, as our, very innovative in kind of the ways that we do these things. So although I think other parts of the country are getting more advanced in this particular sector, I think historically we've worked really hard to try to maintain that area, maintain that level of performance. So I often tell parents that, we've built an infrastructure, an institution that allows students to really be able to work a la carte in areas that are so expansive and so formative for them at a really important time. We built that, and I think when you think about this conundrum of kind of where people now are thinking that maybe it's too overvalued, I think we responded to that. We're beginning to think now and try to find out ways to really reinvest in things that are most distinctive and then concentrate on student success measures. So I think we are here because we've always been state of the art across the world. And we've innovated in ways that, in building facilities that would allow for us to stay at that level. But I think moving forward, all institutions will agree that we're going to move forward in such a way that we're going to look for ways to make sure that all of our investments are going to relate to very positive student outcomes. And I'm very pleased that Drexel has had a history of actually having those great outcomes. I think as we move forward, I'm looking forward to us even to exceed those levels.
Today is the day that, by coincidence, that when we're doing this recording, it was announced that Michael Bloomberg had made a $1.8 billion gift to Johns Hopkins, the largest gift, as far as anybody knows, to any college university. Mm-hmm. And what's fascinating about it, he said, I want to make it so that any person who's qualified to gain entry to Johns Hopkins can do so without reference to means or background or anything. That's a pretty good vote of confidence, it seems to me, to have somebody make that kind of investment. But it also is meaningful when somebody gives $10 that says they still believe in the mission of higher education.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, when I read the article, and it's not the first one, I think we went to MIT recently for artificial intelligence. So I really appreciate that, because I think what it's saying is, it's actually, to me, I think it's a vote of confidence in our education system to say, look, we want you to continue to innovate in this area. And we want to continue for our students to kind of be the best educated in the world. So we want to, if you look back historically, 70% of high school students who graduate go on to college. Mm-hmm. And so the onus is on institutions to try to look at the 30% to kind of bring them into this, because we're going to need that workforce.
Exactly.
The other part of it is actually making sure the 70% are already coming and getting the outcomes and getting the best possible notions. Now, we struggle, I think, as private institutions, we struggle with trying to balance the checkbook, because we pretty much a top of our own bottom. Public schools are getting there as well. So I think the nation is moving to an area where philanthropy around higher education is going to be more and more important. Mm-hmm. I guess as a provost, when I saw that, because 1.8 billion, what is that? Is that about 100 million a year or so?
Mm-hmm. It's about that.
Yeah, it's that, I would take, that wouldn't quite make us complete. That's crazy. I said 1.8 billion. I said, that's not enough.
So is it safe to say, Dr. Blake, you wouldn't turn it away because it's not quite enough? Is it safe to say?
I was telling someone earlier, I said, we don't need that much, but I said, I would take a lot less.
Brian Blake is the provost at Drexel University, and we are very happy to have you join us this week on Innovators. And we'll talk to you again in the very near future.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Innovators, a production of Harris Search Associates. We'll have more insightful conversations with global thought leaders to follow.